everybody, welcome back to another video. We're here, we're in the new setup, we've got some new stuff. Santa was good to us, and you know, to that end, it's a cheap gag, and I applaud you for sticking with me thus far. But yes, it's the one after Christmas. I do hope you're all keeping well. It's nearly the end of 2021, and what a great year that's been for all of us. Real good fun. Anyway, you've been asking for another one of the body language videos, following the recent breakdowns that we did and the live stuff that we did and the explanation of why the YouTube phenomenon when it comes to these kinds of videos can do a lot more harm than good in this area. So I'm trying to put forward a strong idea of exactly what can and can't be done with this kind of endeavor, with this kind of expose. So much in the same way we have a video from a rather charming man, Richard Kuklinski. I believe I'm saying his name correctly there, but in time-honored tradition. If this is your first time to the channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Ben Cardall, and I am the author of the best-selling book, The Monographs, which details the real-world methods for the skill set of Sherlock Holmes, how to develop them, how to train them, and how to use these skills in your everyday life. And I now spend my time teaching people from all over the world, from all manner of backgrounds, both security and non-security and everywhere in between, how to do this for the protection of themselves and those around them. So if that sounds like anything you'd be interested in hearing more about, do feel free to subscribe to the channel. I know that most of you that watch these videos aren't already subscribed, so naughty, but you know, fair play. It is what it is at the end of the day. You're either going to do it or you're not, right? So yeah, Richard Kuklinski, a gentleman that was known as the Iceman. I believe there was a film based on his antics of the same name. He, to say he was involved in quite the number of enterprises of a criminal nature would be to undersell him. He ran a burglary ring. Almost sounded vaguely like Homer Simpson there. A burglary ring, pirated pornography, killed people. He was mostly described as somebody that killed for profit, for money. And I believe that in 2003 he received 30 years on top of what he'd already gotten after he confessed to the murder of a mob-connected police officer. So the clip that we're going to watch today is from a documentary, I believe, and I don't know anything more than that. Right, so we'll see what it can go forward for from there in terms of what we can see, what we can't, what we can work with, what we can't, what we know already, where that confirmation bias leaks in. There's never going to be a situation where we're going to watch his eyebrow twitch and we're going to know his life story. I mean, I'd argue with somebody who has a nickname like the Iceman anyway. His face probably won't move that much. But that remains to be seen. Let's have a look and see what happens in the video.
Richard Kuklinski was born April 11th, 1935, in a low-income public housing project in Jersey City. His father was a brakeman for the railroad, and his mother worked in a meatpacking plant.
So you know the thing with these documentaries, much like when we looked at everything right the way back to Tiger King, we are looking through the lens of a documentary filmmaker. So, I mean, whether there's any truth to the information that comes out about the Iceman of parental influence in the way that he behaves and in the way that he acted in relation to his crimes and his thoughts and his deeds, remains to be seen. But that should be kept in mind as well, because that's a lens that we don't very often take into account as part of formulating the context for reading this kind of material. It's done through somebody else's perspective. How do we maintain a separate viewing to remain above it all in terms of the narratives that are designed to push you in one way or the other, right? I mean, it might not have any of that, but it's something that we need to keep in mind in terms of what we're seeing, the music that goes along with it, the kind of camera shots that are used, you know, all forms part of our reading of this kind of material.
I didn't like my father, as he would beat me just because he felt like it, to get my attention, I guess. He would think nothing of coming in and smacking you know, basically. He'd just come in and give you a whooping for no reason whatsoever. And my mother was cancer. She would destroy everybody. She thought I took too long to do something. She didn't hesitate to give me a swat here and there. And she didn't just use her hand. She would hit me with a broomstick or something like that. It hurt.
Now, again, in isolation, and again, I'm stressing this because I've got no other context at the minute for his normative displays, his comfort versus his anxiety versus his discomfort versus his enraged, right? So we're taking this in isolation of when you are revivifying memories that have occurred. You know, there is this common misconception regarding eye accessing cues, and that you look up this way to access this and look up this way to reconstruct this, and visual audio and kinesthetic and all of that nonsense, right? Which, to use the English catchphrase of bollocks, doesn't do it. It doesn't do it enough descriptive justice. But what we can say, right? What we can say about those engaging within information that exists in here, primarily with things that they are picturing, things that they are revivifying. There is a lack of focus in terms of the direction that they're looking at, right? So if I was looking towards you and I was about to describe a memory that had occurred, I might lose focus for a moment and then come back, right? These are some of the changes in patterns that we can see. So everything in terms of this description so far is congruent with what he's talking about. Now, looking at the rest of the face, yeah, I mean, you can see, I've spoken enough times on the podcast about this, you can see that in his facial displays, given that he is a man of age, and the highly stressful, right, ergonomically speaking, whether he feels them or not, the highly stressful scenarios that he would have to go through, be it physically or mentally or both, it is not reflective in his skin. There's no remnants in the wrinkles in terms of overuse of expression. So this may be where the Iceman myth comes from, in that his face rarely moves, his expression never changes. But again, you can see that congruence reflected in his voice. He spoke so cavalierly about something that clearly causes him a lot of I don't know whether he would describe it as pain. Torment, right? If you look at some of the differentiating definitions of torment, you can learn to cope, rightly or wrongly, but you can learn to cope with it. So you can speak about it in this kind of way. But on the flip side of this, we have, you know, the Iceman look, the Iceman image that's coming along with this, because that's a specifically crafted beard that has been brushed, that has been designed. Now, if this man's in prison, I would bet that I mean, I would imagine that it differs from prison to prison, you know, the kind of systems that you're in. But you know, the use of shavers, be it cutthroat or wet razors and the like, would be strictly prohibited or monitored. So this is something that has been cut into his beard, looking at the regrowth there based on the kind of levels that we see in terms of adrenaline, in terms of testosterone. I would estimate a day, if not on the day, in that mild regrowth that's on the top of the lip there. But it's a specifically crafted image, right? So this whole Iceman thing is not a cover. It's not a hat that he takes off. He is the Iceman. He lives this through and through. So in terms of the congruent episodes that we'll see, there will be a lot more of them compared to levels of incongruence. So it would be interesting to see these moments, if at all, that he references a change in storytelling, or says something like "this pissed me off," or "I was happy about this," or something along those lines. But that's the immediate information that we get in terms of his beard, in terms of his skin, in terms of his expressions, in the way that he's looking and the like, and his demeanour, and how that matches with the tone of his voice. All of this there already for us to work with, for us to think about, and then be able to confirm or deny the things that we're seeing as we go moving forwards, right? Because everything factors into this kind of continual change, this continual calculation of the non-verbals that we see in relation to this guy.
As a matter of fact, she broke the broom on me more than once.
Richard's mother believed that harsh discipline at home should go hand in hand with a rigid religious education.
Yowza.
I was raised Catholic. She was strict as far as the religion goes. I went to...
Your mother?
My mother, yeah. My mother, we went to Catholic grammar school. And we were raised with the Catholic belief. I was even an altar boy.
Now, again, if you're looking at what's going on in his jaw and inside of his mouth, we could think of this as an emblematic reference towards things that are a hard pill to swallow, right? In terms of where he is now, the nature of faith and love and religion and the protection of this element that watches over you in terms of whatever religion it is that you support, right? They have these similar kind of ideals, but that's been intertwined with this difficulty that he has in talking about his mother and the way that he was raised. I would bet there would be more than one occasion where his mother has referenced doing what she did to him in the name of religion, and this is where that's nothing more than an inductively reasoned observation from there. Right, that's just plain statistics based on what we can see, because there's a lot of action going on. Increased breathing compared to this first bit. Obviously, there might be a lot of time between these two questions, but increased breathing, which has led to a drying of the tongue, which has led to more action, trying to re-moisten what's in there for a degree of comfort. The tension in the jaws as well. That's moving forward when he starts to talk about this kind of material, which, again, could be all part of how he normally talks and thinks and moves and acts about everyday things. He might just talk and normally do that, but it's an irrefutable change between the first clip that we saw and now, that he's had increased breathing to unconsciously need to re-moisten in those areas. It's why when you talk for a great deal of time, you think, "Oh, I need some water, or I need to wet my whistle to keep the levels of comfort there, so we can keep talking in the same way that we do." But the other side of this is we're starting to see where these leaks, if you want to use that buzzword, right, could be could be a link towards information that we could use later on. If it pops up again and again in relation to items that would be difficult to talk about.
But during the course of my life, I don't really believe it.
There you go.
It's just the way it happened. Didn't mean it to happen that way, but it just happened that way.
When his father abandoned the family, Richard, a skinny, timid young teenager, was left to fend for himself. He was an easy target for street gangs, but by the time he was 16, things began to change.
When I was a young man, I found out that if you hurt somebody, they'll leave you alone. Good guys do finish last. When I tried to leave everybody alone, just do my own thing, everybody just wanted to hurt me. Until one day I just decided, well, I've had enough of this picking. And I went upstairs and I took a bar, which the clothes used to hang on in the closet. And I went back downstairs, and there were like 6 young men, still
Jaw again.
figuring they were gonna mess with my head, and we went to war.
Someone that plays Duolingo.
To their surprise, I was no longer taking the beating. I was giving it. And that's when I learned that it was better to give than to receive.
See, again, we saw the action in him referencing that the 6 guys were thinking that they were going to hurt him. That doesn't sit well with me. But the change that happened when I was the one giving the beating, and that little smile that leaked out forward from there, you know, this is these congruent elements that formulate, you know, the Iceman mythology, right? There's no shell that he's wearing. This is him. It's not something that he has to think about. It's not behaviors that he has to fight. These things happen automatically. It's that classic debate of nature versus nurture. Are we the product of our surroundings in the way that we react to things later on in life? There are arguments for and against it. Of course there are. They are, you know, not to bring Disney into this, but they are tales as old as time. But it's information that we can use, right? It's information that we can use if we are presented with this man who speaks about difficulties growing up, right, in his relationship towards violence, and these 6 guys being the kind of paradigm-altering moment. What would be the antecedents to this kind of thing on an abductively reasoned basis, right? If you look at the presentation of the certain observations that we have in his relation to a lack of fear or distress or discomfort when he's speaking about violence, the complete virtual monotone nature to his voice that doesn't change regardless of what he's speaking about. You know, it would be interesting to hear him reference, you know, a drink order versus talking about the first time that he killed someone, to see if that tone changes to a different degree. We've seen slight peaks and troughs in terms of what interests him, what excites him more. But yeah, interesting man, non-verbally speaking. Of course, non-verbally speaking.
I've been known to hurt people for no reason. If you check out my background as I came up, I could be anywhere, and if somebody humiliated me, I would think nothing of hitting them with a cue stick. In an instant.
Was that true?
And the only thing they might have done was...
And then he was thinking about a few people that he had hit.
made me feel bad. Or challenged my authority at the time.
Kuklinski's reputation as a tough guy with a hair-trigger temper grew. By the time he was 18, the abused had become the abuser. It wasn't long before he committed his first murder.
I got into a fight in a bar. We got into an argument, a fight. And I hit him with a cue stick. A few too many times. And he died.
How'd you feel after, when you found out he had died?
I had felt very bad. Very, very bad. I was upset. I didn't mean to do it, actually. But surprisingly, I felt sadness, and after a while, I felt something else. I didn't feel sad. It was sad along with some sort of a rush that I had control, and if you mess with me, I guess if you mess with me, I'll hurt you.
Again, action in the jaw when he's talking about, I did feel bad at the time. I hit him one too many times with the cue stick, which I imagine was a pool cue. I don't know the colloquialisms. I imagine that's the case. But yeah, and then when he starts to talk about the brush and the growth and the development from there, no action, no change. So that's based on what we've seen previously. We can mark this peak and a trough in line with that congruent detail that he genuinely felt in control, didn't feel bothered after the fact. This is a truism. So we can look at this as a marker for if he speaks about future things that we may need an inference towards how he feels about it, and whether he has the need to be guarded or keep this. I mean, it's not a veneer, but keep this front up for the sake of being challenged, or whether he does actually feel nodes of distress. It's starting to move further in his jaw in this area, but tonally, still very much the same, which again speaks to the congruency and again gives us further insight into this man's emotional palette, in that the way that he displays anything that he does particularly feel will be low-key. He is the Iceman. This isn't something that he switches off.
By the time he'd reached his 20s, Kuklinski had become a petty crook and pool hustler. Then his life changed. In 1960, he met a pretty 19-year-old girl named Barbara Pedrin.
He was absolutely flowers at the door every day, and considerate and romantic, and all of the things that anybody could hope for, dream for. He bought me beautiful things. We went fun places. He was happiest when we were together. He was happiest when just he and I were together.
He and Barbara had 3 children. But with just an 8th grade education, he could only get low-paying jobs that didn't pay enough to support his growing family.
Turn to what he was good at to make
I didn't have the capability of getting a better paying job. Was I going to push a yarn truck the rest of my life? Make a menial amount of money? I couldn't have afforded 1 child, let alone 3.
He went to work at a film lab, where he began to pirate pornographic films and sell them to outside sources connected to the Gambino crime family. This connection led to other criminal activities, and it wasn't long before he went from being a small-time hood to a big-time...
You'll note as well that when he speaks to the interviewer, there's those moments when he's just talking about things, not revivifying anything, but he's just not looking at him. Because, you know, the interest level in this guy over here doesn't warrant that kind of reciprocity to the conversation. This man's beneath me. Yeah, I'll talk to you for a bit because I'm stuck in the big house. But you can ask me whatever questions you want, and I'll turn to you and give you some answers when I want to, or I'll think about a story that happened when I want to tell you about it. But ultimately, you're here for me. I aren't here for you. And this comes back to the information that he was speaking about previously in terms of the way that his actions would elevate him on whatever kind of social status that he was a part of.
Killer. He worked as a hitman and associated with a gang that worked out of the notorious Gemini Lounge in Brooklyn. Above the lounge was a mafia killing factory where victims were killed and dismembered. Hacked bodies were packaged in plastic bags and carted away. Kuklinski was the perfect enforcer. He was brutal, and he knew how to intimidate.
Again, listen to the voice, listen to the music.
If people owed money, they either paid up or paid with their lives.
Most people paid their bills. Some didn't. I remember one guy, he was owed a lot of money. Well, I guess considerable amount of money. He hid behind, he thought he could hide behind a door. It was a nice door, expensive door. Anyway, most people don't realize that when you come to answer a door, if there's light in the background, the person on the outside can look through the peephole and see the guy coming to the door. So he came to the door, I asked who it was, and he looked through the peephole. And he never saw what hit him.
For Richard Kuklinski, murder had become a way of life, and the macabre...
Yeah. So there we have it, guys. A real charmer. But yeah, interesting for us, well, at least me, or, you know, the 6 of you that probably watch this, the way in which, even though non-verbal communication in terms of its volume can be turned down, it can still present information for us to work with, right? But again, let's not forget, a lot of context we're working without in this particular stage. So were this a real life encounter? Were we the interviewer in this particular documentary? There are so many more considerations that we need to make, right? So many more. But in terms of what we can take away from this, it's the marking of low-key behaviors, of low-volume behaviors in relation to reasoned details that we can confirm or deny moving forwards based on how the conversation goes, right? To start to try and connect these dots as and when they pop up. Okay? So if you enjoyed that, guys, first of all, drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know who you want to see broken down. God, that sounded vaguely mafioso myself. Probably not from a blathering Englishman, but, you know, the words themselves from a statement analysis perspective. Please subscribe to the channel as well if you enjoyed it. We've got plenty more stuff coming in the new year. I've got a lot of fun ideas, well, at least fun ideas that I think, and from you guys that watch these videos, it seems to be that you guys enjoy them too. We're getting dangerously close to that 10,000 mark now, which is super exciting. And I've got a real fun idea for a 10,000 subscriber special for iMemorize. So if you could help me get there, I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, with that in mind, I hope you guys all have a marvelous new year, and I sincerely hope that 2022 it's a lot better for you guys than 2020 and 2021 have been. Because Lord knows they need to be. Okay, guys. See you later. Take it easy.